I think if you've never taken care of yourself, you'd be shocked at the person you could be if you showed yourself just a little bit of self-care. Even if you started with the minimum of like 5 minutes a day, or even just allowing yourself that grace of imperfection. And when you start to shift these feelings and mindset, there's like a whole nother world that's out there when you take care of yourself. Because I see it in my kids, how I relate to them. You'll be amazed on how different every single relationship in your life, even with strangers, can be when you take care of yourself.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how easy it is for marriage to take a back seat. But unlike your parents' marriage, your marriage can feel good while raising kids and doesn't have to feel hard. It can look like having each other's backs, even flirting and looking forward to spending time with each other. And I'm here to help you. So join me here each week as we dive into what it takes for your marriage to become something you enjoy again, from how to handle conflict better and bringing that spark back into your relationship. If you're ready for your marriage to feel good again, this podcast is for you. Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about something that you are likely doing ever since you've become a mom that has a huge I'm going to say that again. That has a huge impact on not only how you feel, but your experience of motherhood, your experience of your marriage, and basically all aspects of your life. And that is self-care. Okay. So here I have Sarah Parise. She is an experienced ACE certified personal trainer and wellness specialist, a yoga instructor, and a business owner, but most importantly, a mother just like us. She's driven by her passion to help other moms take better care of themselves, and she's created a business centered around self-care and prioritizing yourself just even 2% of the day. Bottom line, she helps moms have more great days, and I don't know about you, but sign me up. I would love to have more great days. I would love that to be the normal. And if that's not your normal, I'm glad you're here. Listen up to this episode. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our chat today.
Yeah. Okay. So I love nothing more than to talk about this because I think that this is so underrated and so easy to just push off to the side because we can really easily just get bogged down by responsibilities and be like, well, this is just life. I got to do what I got to do and I'll take care of myself another day. But before we dive into this, let's get to know you better. Where do you live and how old are your kids?
So I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, most recently. We've been kind of all over the place. I grew up in New York, spent some time out in California, just a hot, quick second in Baltimore, and now we're in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my girls now are 5 and 7. So we've really hit a great sweet spot, especially this time of year of they're just a little independent, but still believe in everything. Like unicorns and rainbows are my world, which I never thought would be the case. And yeah, motherhood, smacks you in the face sometimes, that's for sure.
Sometimes, yes, a lot of times. So what inspired you to become a wellness coach for moms?
Oh, my own struggle. Like so many of us that go into business because of the story that we kind of felt like we needed to share. I really wasn't convinced to be a mom. I wasn't a person that was like, oh, I want to get married and have kids and this is what I want to do. I don't know if I was just with all the wrong people or I didn't picture myself as a mom, kind of giving up my whole life to be a mom because that's what I saw growing up. It was like my mom was just a mom and she did everything for everyone and never took care of herself. And being in the health and wellness space my whole career, I was like, well, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound like something for me. And then I met my husband and we started a family, and motherhood really was a rough transition for me. I dealt with my own demons of postpartum depression and anxiety, which I think a lot of us do undiagnosed. And you're told that it's normal. It's the baby blues. It's normal to feel this in transition. And I had my daughter when I was 36. So I had an adulthood before becoming a mom. And I had all the freedoms and luxuries of being a single person before that. And then I lost everything. I wasn't working in my normal field. I wasn't spending time with my friends who were all single and no one was even married, much less having kids out in LA. And I was early to have kids. And it was shocking to me how I fell so quickly, not even to the bottom of the priority list, like off the priority list. No one really asked how I was. It was just about the baby. It was just about, how's the baby? How's the baby? And I was like dying inside, but no one seemed to even notice or care because it was all about her. And I hit a real dark spot. It was a real dark space about 6 months in. And I decided at that dark moment that I really didn't want anyone else to have to struggle like this. And I found that self-care was my kind of way out of the darkness. And one tiny piece at a time of digging myself out, a yoga class here, a cup of tea in the sunshine there, journaling for 3 minutes, like little tiny things. I took a long time, but kind of built my way out of it myself and with my physical therapist. And when she asked me on my last session, after curing all the things that happened during childbirth, including a broken tailbone, she said, "What's next for you?" And I said, I've been searching for someone to tell me how to move my body, tell me how to nourish my body, tell me what to do with this new body that I have that I am not accustomed to. And I was a physically active person. I was a college athlete. I've always been active. I've always been into wellness and nutrition. I've been a personal trainer since 2006. It's not like anything was new, but I had a new body, and it was scary to see what that new body couldn't do and wasn't able to function like it did before. And I said, I want to create something so moms don't feel like this. I want to create something so that they have someone to say, okay, here are the exercises you should focus on. Here's the nutrition you should focus on without counting calories or macros or weighing things or all these things, and keeping it simple and taking care of ourselves so we can feel our best, so we can give our best to everyone else.
Oh my gosh, I can relate to so much of what you're sharing.
I think so many moms out there can. I talk to moms weekly of just like, that's my story. That's my story. And we just don't talk about it enough. And I think, just to clear one thing up, I think people think self-care and they think like lavish spa treatments and like weekends away, which are all lovely. It's not like there's anything wrong with it, but self-care has to take place in your daily life, like your daily grind of like what this is, because spa treatments aren't always an option.
No, it's not sustainable. I mean, that'd be incredible if that's your life, right?
Yes.
Kudos to you. Sign me up. But when it comes to actual self-care, it's in the decisions that we're making. It's in how we care for ourselves, what we say no to, the boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even acknowledging what it is that you're needing, spending time with yourself in the quiet, which a lot of people aren't comfortable with, right? So I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. So why is it that you think that moms put themselves last? Like, why is it so easy for us to just neglect ourselves? Like, let's call it what it is. Like, it's neglecting ourselves.
And imagine if we treated our kids how we treat ourselves.
We would never.
We would never do that. And if we did, they would be taken away in a heartbeat.
Yes.
So why is it okay for us to completely neglect our own health? I think it's because I found it's two big buckets. It's like family. So like the family you grew up with. So for me, it was like the example of my mom. I mean, it's like a point of pride. She never did anything for herself. She still doesn't do anything for herself. And she used to say, you'll understand when you're a mother. And for some aspects, I can appreciate that now that I'm a mom, the amount of worry, just the amount that there is to do. But on the flip side, I'm like almost mad at her some days. Like, I can't believe this is the example you set for me, that I wasn't allowed to have my own self and find myself again after becoming a mother, and just what I saw growing up. And it wasn't just my mom. It was my friends' moms. It was my aunts. It was my grandmother. It was like,
it's that generation.
Give until you have nothing left to give. And you have not, I mean, when I say there's nothing in your cup, there's not even a cup there, like of just, bottom, like completely depleted. And then the other side of it, I think it is just like our society that we live in. There's so many pressures from everything. Like today I walked out of preschool. I had this really big epiphany. So my 5-year-old's in pre-K 4 and she's the oldest in her grade. There's like a million things to do. There's Christmas trees to fill out for the teachers. There's all the gift wrapping station for the teachers. And all, of course, you want to give the gifts for the teachers. So I had this laundry list of things going as I dropped her off today. And that's what I was going to do today. I was going to take care of all of the preschool things, but I had stuff to do for work too. So I was like, you know what I've decided? I'm doing New Year's gifts. So after the run of the holiday season, I will do New Year's gifts for when they go back to school for the
Yeah.
teachers. And it sounded like such a little thing in the moment, but then I had my morning and I got what I needed to get done at home. I got my stuff done for work. I was able to address the needs of a couple clients that came up. And just that one thought of like, you know what? This doesn't need to be, I don't need to feel the pressure of getting holiday gifts before the
Yeah.
holidays. We can do it in January. And like that little mindset shift changed everything about my day.
So much relief. And I think a lot of the neglect is that pressure that we put on ourselves to be a good mom, whatever the hell that means,
Yeah.
right? And comparing ourselves to the people that we see around us, the people like our parents, our aunts, our grandmas, and
Mhm.
even like the people that you see at school pick up and you're like, oh, they have it together. They're doing it. I should hop on that train and do it too. But you have no idea what their life is
Mhm.
like, whether they have support, whether they're super burned out and they're just really good at hiding it,
Yeah.
right? And I think we as moms too often live for other people and we don't give ourselves enough permission to be like, this is just what I'm going to do. Like what you did, Sarah, with the gifts, right?
Mhm.
You're like, you know what? Not in the cards for me. Don't feel like doing that. That's not how I want to feel about today.
Mhm.
So this is not that important. Like it's important that I want to acknowledge and thank the teacher, but
Yes.
does it really have to be ready in time for winter break? No, they'll appreciate it just as much later.
And if not, maybe more. Since
Yeah.
they're inundated with stuff this week, like they wrap up school on Friday, so 2 days from now.
Yeah.
And, and they'll probably appreciate and remember something that came in January instead.
Right.
And I don't know, I needed to allow myself a little grace today with a list of things to do. And just that mindset shift helps so much.
Yeah. Or even just like delegating it, right? Like saying,
Mhm.
hey, husband, is this something you can handle? Because I don't have the bandwidth. And if they
Mhm.
don't, then fine, do it later, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's all about knowing what's real pressure and what's
Mhm.
fabricated pressure. Like, are we doing it to ourselves or is there an actual deadline? Is there a consequence to this that we don't want to experience? And I think making that intentional choice and seeing our choices is such a game changer.
Or remembering why we're doing stuff, why you're going through it in the first place. So I just recorded a new course for next year. It's Shine More in 2024. And one of the audio lessons talks about like how you want to remember this. So thinking
Mhm.
about tonight, I'm going to our neighborhood cookie exchange and we started it fancy. We started it, we're getting dressed up. We're doing all the things. We're doing a $50 white elephant. And week by week by week, it's kind of notched down to like we're wearing pajamas, we're doing wine, maybe bring food, I don't even know, like it's just like drop it down because what are
Yes.
you going to remember? Are you going to remember the fancy layout of the table, or are you going to remember how much fun you had with your friends? And I do this often with my kids are not going to remember how perfectly decorated the house was. You know what they will remember? That like really cool morning activity that I put together for them instead. So it's like, what's the intention? Why are you doing this? And
Yes.
I mean, all comes back to like, aren't you going to remember the fun, not the stress of
Oh
the
my
situation?
gosh, I know. And how do you want to experience it? If you are running around with your head cut off, right? You're not going to enjoy it and be present because you're worried about stuff and you're still coming off that crazy stress spike that you just put yourself
Mhm.
through. I'm all about lowering our standards for
Mhm.
ourselves. Let's not be the Pinterest mom. If that's not something that brings you joy, like you
Mhm.
enjoy doing it and you enjoy the whole process. I don't enjoy that stuff. I can appreciate it, but
Mhm.
like my house is very minimally decorated. Like I have one room with Christmas stuff and that's it. Like we've got the tree, we've got the mantle, we're good to go. I don't
Mhm.
want to stress out about it. I want this holiday season to feel joyful, connected, slow, right? Like
Mhm.
I want it to feel good. And in the years past, I was not doing that. I felt like I had so many things to do and so many people to please, and I
Mhm.
wasn't pleasing myself at all.
And some people look at that as selfish because you're like, I wasn't pleasing myself. But like, why does self care have to be selfish? It's
Right.
not like this crazy luxury. that you like sometimes get or only like the wealthy get. It's such a necessity to be able to give to anyone else. You need to take care of yourself. It's like I often come back to that oxygen mask on the airplane. Every time we fly, they're like, make sure you put, I'm like, I know, but they have to say it. Make sure you put your mask on first and then help your kids. Because if you're passed out, you're doing no one else any good. And I feel that same way during the holiday season sometimes of like, what are we doing here? I can't make it fun for them if I'm so stressed out. I can't make it fun for me if I'm so stressed out. Or my poor
Yeah.
husband. Oh my goodness, let's not even get started on that.
And it's not even just, I can't make it fun for them. I don't know about you, but when I'm stressed out, I yell a lot more. I am like cranky. Nobody wants to be around me. So you're actually doing the complete opposite of what you intended to do. You're trying to bring all the magic and all the joy and the fun, but are you actually getting that outcome? Are you being the person who is bringing the magic, the joy, and the fun? Because if all you're doing is like putting all this pressure to like decorate, have all these activities, taking them to all these places and burning yourself out in the process, you're not being joy, fun, or connection. You're damaging it, actually. Right. And I'm the first person to be like, yeah, been there, right? Like this is not coming from a place of judgment
We all have.
whatsoever. But what I want you to do is like check yourself. Give yourself permission to prioritize who you're being than what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so why is it important for us to shift away from this concept of like martyrdom and doing all the things and being the person who just puts all this responsibility on ourselves and neglecting ourselves instead of taking care of ourselves? Like, why is it important to shift away from neglect to self-care?
I think if anyone's listening and you've never taken care of yourself, you'd be shocked at the person you could be if you showed yourself just a little bit of self-care. Even if you started with like the minimum of like 5 minutes a day, or even just allowing yourself that grace of imperfection. And when you start to shift these feelings and shift this mindset, there's like a whole nother world that's out there when you take care of yourself. Because I see it in my kids, how I relate to them. I see it, my patience is so much greater when I get a workout in or I do a walk or listen to a meditation first thing in the morning, because I'm a mom. We're all moms. If you don't do it first thing in the morning, it probably isn't going to get done unless you have a little bit of time, like after drop off, to sneak something in. You'll be amazed on how different every single relationship in your life, even with strangers, can be when you take care of yourself. I ran into a mom today at preschool pickup and she didn't even say hello. She was just like listing the things that she had to do. And 95% of those things were things that she has signed up for, that she has volunteered for. So I sat and I listened, and in my head, I'm like, these are all choices. And
Yes.
a lot of what we do is not a choice. Obviously, we have to go grocery shopping. We have to do the laundry.
Right.
There's things that are minimal that we have to do to just sustain. But then a lot of us kind of take on that martyrdom that you said about like, look at all what I'm doing. Like she's the room parent for 3 of her kids and she's doing the Christmas parties and she's doing the church stuff and and I just sat and I was a good listener, but in my head, I'm like, you brought all of this stuff on yourself.
Yep.
I've asked her multiple times the last couple of weeks to get coffee just because she's very stressed. And I'm like, let's go grab coffee after drop off. I can't. I have do. And we all know somebody that's like that. And we've probably ourselves been that person at times.
Oh, yeah.
But even when you meet a friend for coffee or meet a friend to walk, especially when you walk and talk, that social connection, that physical movement, all these endorphins and all these hormones that are generated that feel good, that you want to do it more. That's why I say start with 5 minutes.
I think you're so right about it making such a huge difference when you start taking care of yourself. It's kind of like the if you know thing, right? Until you start trying it out, you don't know how good it is on the other side of things. Because you have gotten so used to this like state of stress and overwhelm and burnout that this is your norm now. But if you are not enjoying waking up in the morning, going about your day, and it just feels like you're in a hamster wheel and you don't know how to get off, this is your sign that you need to at least try something different. Whether it's not signing up for one of the things or spending a couple more minutes in the bathroom just to yourself.
Mhm.
It's invaluable what self-care can do for you as a whole person. Working with my clients, I've seen such a huge change. Like, aside from, communication challenges and working through, resentment and all that stuff,
Mhm.
working on yourself, your family is going to enjoy you so much more.
And vice versa. You'll enjoy being around them more because
Yes.
you'll actually like yourself more, which I
Yes.
think is a huge part of self-care. People say all the time, I
Absolutely.
hear daily, I don't have time. I can't make time. You're right. You can't make time. We all have the same 24-hour clock that we live by. We all have all these other responsibilities that we run to do. But it's about finding time and prioritizing your time and
Yes.
finding something that you do enjoy. And whether it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 50 minutes a day to find something that you really enjoy doing. If you can't do that, I'm kind of like, well, what are we doing? Like, what is the
Yeah.
point of this whole life situation that we have going on?
Yeah. And you've got to protect that time. Not only do you need to put it as part of your routine, but you've got to protect it
Hmm.
and be really intentional about it. It's not like one of those, like, on your phone, you get notifications, you're like, yeah, 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 swipe it
Yeah.
away. I want it to be the thing that you think 3 times about swiping away, you taking care
Mhm.
of yourself. Okay, because when you don't, I don't know. Do you read like the Berenstain Bears? There's like a
Of
book,
course.
Strangers. Yeah,
Yes.
like little sister gets really scared after her mom tells her about, like, oh, don't talk to strangers, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden she goes from seeing butterflies and all this like happiness to
Hmm.
everything is so dark. She's like doubting every single person she's coming across.
Hmm.
That is the best way I can describe the difference between not taking care of yourself and taking care
Hmm.
of yourself.
And I always use the analogy of the Wizard of Oz when it's like you live in black and white and then you start taking care of yourself and you're like, you're noticing things. You notice the trees, you notice how things smell. You just notice. My husband always comments on that. He's like, you notice like the littlest things. It's
Yes.
like that mindfulness that comes into play. And it's unbelievable how much things can shift and how much things could change.
Okay, so what are some practical, simple ways for moms to start taking care of themselves if they're new to this? If they're like what we normally encounter. I don't have time, I don't have the energy, it must be
Mhm.
nice, like the usual suspects that we
Of
hear about.
course. So my first tip is I always say just make coffee. And I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm a tea girl myself,
Me
but
too.
just make coffee. When you're making coffee in the morning, like just make coffee. Focus on just that one task and just start small. If you're not a coffee drinker, apply it to something. Like just brush your teeth. Don't be like scrolling on social media or checking your email or doing something else, trying to get your kids out the door. Pick an activity that you can just do and just be in that moment doing it. And it just starts with a little bit of mindfulness, just a tiny bit of smell the coffee, taste the coffee, just
Yeah.
focus on that. So I think you like start literally that small. And the second thing I would say is get outside, like whether you commute or you work from home or you are in the office, get outside, even just to take 5 deep breaths. That was one of my Monday meditations in my Facebook group the other day. It was unbelievable, the comments. I'm like, guys, we stepped outside, we took 5 breaths. This is not earth shattering research over here. But getting out in that morning daylight, like setting that circadian rhythm, you'll breathe better, you'll sleep better. Just being walking would be even better for you, but just get outside and get the fresh air, especially
Yes.
if you live in a climate now that's cooler and you're inhaling that cold, fresh air. It's very invigorating to do that. And the unpopular one is to get up earlier. I say mornings for moms, and everyone fights me on this if you're not a morning person, but it is really the only time as a mother that you will not be interrupted most times, not always, most times. Is if you can get up, if you can train yourself even 15 minutes to get up and go for a walk in the morning, if you have a partner in this whole game of life and you can go when the kids are asleep, just walk around the block, walk to the end of your driveway and back. Start really small and it will build upon itself.
Yeah. Or even just like get ready for the day.
Hmm.
That's even self care, like giving yourself that time. Like, I love being woken up because it was my choice. not because a child is screaming, not because
Mhm.
I ran into my room and they're like already asking me for breakfast or already saying, "Hey, I need help to go to the bathroom." Like, okay, like it's such a big difference when you get to move through life because you want to do these things.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I do the same thing. I set my alarm for 20, 30 minutes earlier, and I don't put pressure on myself to do anything in particular. I just want to
Mhm.
be able to be the one to wake myself up, whether I go
Yeah.
get myself ready for the day and I'm doing that uninterrupted on my own time or
Mhm.
eat breakfast. Eating breakfast by yourself is like, what? I get to eat it warm. Or like you said,
Mhm.
Sarah, make your drink of choice. For me, it's my matcha latte. And being able to
Mhm.
drink it while it's warm is like,
The
this is
first time, not heating it up 25
right.
other
Not
times.
having it live in the microwave or however you do it, right? But that in itself is like, okay, I can do this. And as
Mhm.
you get more of a taste of it, it's like the best kind of drug, right? You get addicted to it and you want to do it more and you give yourself more time. Maybe you go out with girlfriends. Maybe you go on a date with your husband. Maybe you
Mhm.
go sign yourself up for, I don't know, lately I've been really loving sound baths. Like they're
Oh,
amazing. If you've never tried
fantastic.
that before, it's like the best nap ever
Mhm.
and it's good for your body. Like,
It's awesome.
so good. But anyway, what else do you have to share to help moms feel a little more courageous to take this first step of taking care of themselves?
So I have a Facebook community called Time Out for Moms. It's wellness, accountability, and support. And the whole goal, I created it about a year and a half ago. The whole goal was to get together and have moms that want to prioritize their own health and give them little snippets of ideas. Like we do face mask Mondays. So Monday nights, it all started like during the pandemic, and it was when The Bachelor was on. And like a group of girls that I was working with, a few of my clients were like, we should do something for The Bachelor. I was never into like the Bachelor series or anything like
Yeah.
that until you involve some self-care. And then I'm like, yes, I can get behind this. So like doing a face mask while you watch a show, and that's something you can do with your husband. I loved your email,
Absolutely.
like Netflix in your
Yes.
marriage. Like, but you can treat self-care with it as well, to do like little, like just little things. It doesn't have to be something expensive. It doesn't have to be something fancy. But I will say, if you're really struggling to prioritize yourself at all, and you really honestly believe that you do not have time, I'd love to chat, because I have
Mhm.
found the busiest of busy women time for themselves, because it is just about finding the time. And we can't make more time, but finding 15 minutes, 20 minutes here, or some responsibilities that we can drop, but you might need a little some permission to drop or say no to, and allow for those boundaries. But my biggest piece of advice is just start small. And if you can't do it by yourself, find a friend. Do it with your spouse. My husband and I work out together often, and it's one, multitask. It's
Yes.
taking care of ourselves. It works on our marriage. We kind of troubleshoot what's going on that week, just 2 mornings a week. And it really changed things when we were in a rocky part of our marriage, just to have that time together.
Yesterday, I was doing like a hit exercise and it was such a fun one. It was one of those ones where it's like to music, so it's to the beat.
I love that.
And my husband like slipped in halfway through. I was like, this is awesome. We're exercising together. And I love those moments where you are able to multitask, right? Like taking
Mhm.
care of your body, you're spending time together. And it just felt like we were doing something together and enjoying and taking care of ourselves. And it just was so meaningful. While doing dishes, you can listen to a podcast where you're learning something.
Mhm.
Learning something could be self care for you if that's something that you enjoy doing, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I think the definition is. It's like if it fills your cup in any way, shape, or form, physically, mentally, or emotionally, that is self care. And it looks
Yes.
different for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Or even like trying a new recipe. Like I love cooking. So I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, this is my self-care. So I don't mind being the chef of the house because this is something
Mhm.
that's filling my cup. It's making me feel more me. And I think that's
Yeah.
really what it gets down to. What are you doing to make you feel like you? Not like the
Mhm.
mom version of you, but you as your own person, as a woman, as a wife, even.
Mhm. and kind of rediscovering it because you aren't the same person that you were
No.
when you were single or when you were first married or even when you first had kids. You know, if your kids are a little bit older, like all these stages of life, like we're different people and it is fun to find ourselves again and find out what you think is fun.
So we covered a lot. Hopefully, what you've heard so far, you're like, okay, I need to get on this. I'm done with putting myself last. I am important too. I matter too. Sarah, you have a free guide. Can you tell us
I
more about
do.
it?
Yeah, so it's how busy moms prioritize their wellness. And it started during the pandemic when everybody was working from home. So I had clients that were out in the business world, and then all of a sudden they were sitting at home and there was no like coffee breaks or even walking to
Yeah.
meetings. Like the number of steps people were taking was drastically declining. So I put together, it looks like a bingo board that you can just put right on your desk. And there's a bunch of different exercises that you can do like in between Zoom calls. And it's like little things that add up to big changes through the course of your day. And it's been a huge hit. I've modified it a little bit through the course of the last couple of years, but it's still people's favorite guide to do because it's something you can just put on your desk, put on your counter. If you're with your kids all day and you're a stay-at-home mom, your kids can even jump into. There's no fancy equipment, nothing complicated, just simple things to sneak in some exercise.
I love that you kind of turn it into a game too,
It's a
because
little bit
like
of a
that
game.
really helps things be more fun. I
Mhm.
definitely notice a difference when it's like, go do this versus like, oh, let's see how fast you can do it or how many can you do. And it works
Mhm.
with kids too. It's so funny.
That much different. We need the fun too.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what is the best way for people to connect with you? If they're like, okay, I need to get more of Sarah in my life. I
Mhm.
need to start making self-care a huge priority in my day-to-day life.
Mhm.
What's the best way for them to connect with you?
I'd say the best way to connect to me is probably on Instagram. My handle is Great Days by Sarah. And then, of course, if you're on Facebook, the Time Out for Moms community, it's Time Out for Moms, wellness, accountability, and support for wellness tips, tricks, and strategies, how to sneak in self care, even in the busiest of days.
Awesome. And how do people work with you?
I have a 7-day wellness jumpstart that I'm rolling out in January. I have a transformational program for 3 months where moms can find their best energy, love the way they look and feel, and that ultimate goal of having more great days through fitness, joyful movement, nutrition, and self care. But if you're not ready for that, I've noticed that people are like, oh, I'll ease into the new year a little bit and want to do a 7-day reset. It's going to be the best, quickest way to just kind of jumpstart things to get you thinking of how you can take care of yourself with a minimal amount of time a day. I do say 2% of the day, which is less than 30 minutes, that we should be able to squeeze in something for ourselves.
Awesome. Okay. Before I let you go, I
Mhm.
love to ask my guests a question to help listeners get to know you better. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So we've talked about self care all throughout this episode. What is your favorite way to practice self care?
Oh my goodness. I'm really into these kind of, you mentioned like a sound bath.
Mm-hmm.
So either like a sound bath or a float. If you've done
Ooh,
like
yeah,
a
float tank.
sensory deprivation float, there's a place I go to called True Rest. I'm not sure how big it is, but what happens is you sit in a big pod of super salty water, so you float. And there can be music or it can be no sound. There can be light, but I like it completely dark. It's honestly the most relaxing thing that I've ever done, and it really turns off my brain. My husband got me a gift certificate last year for Mother's Day, and I finally used it a couple weeks ago. So that's how much self-care is out of the house. But it's something so different. I didn't think I would like it. But someone dared me to try new things in my self-care journey. And I was like, you know
Yes.
what? I will practice what I preach. So that was my favorite this year.
So good. I haven't tried that in a few years. The first time I tried it, I don't think it was a very good setup. So it kind of like ruined my experience. But I definitely
Mhm.
want to try it again because this was like when it was not popular and they didn't have the single pods. It was like a
Okay.
big room. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting lost in here and I can't see a thing. It was like
That would
more
that would be
anxiety.
stressful. This is
Yeah.
like very singular. It
Yeah.
also, I'm a little bit of claustrophobic, so I didn't know how I would be in there.
Yeah.
I have like a fear of being cold for some reason. I mean, I grew up in New York. This is like not rational fear of being cold. But the water is your body temperature.
Yeah.
The air is your body temperature. people that have tried it, you can't tell like what's in water, what's not in water. So at times you like lift your hand up just to see if it's in the water kind of thing. But your mind goes to places that it normally doesn't relax to. So it was amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your take on self-care and some practical tips that our listeners here can start to implement into their daily lives, and know that self-care doesn't have to be this huge thing that is really hard to get into. It is really in just the small choices that you're making on a day-to-day basis, and it has such a huge ripple effect. So I hope this is encouraging you to take that step to take care of yourself even more than you were before. Or if you're new to this, to just start, period.
Mm-hmm.
And if you love what you heard, please go connect with Sarah. Let her know you found her from this show, and let us know what you think about this episode. What are your thoughts? What are your takeaways? What are you excited to start doing because of this episode? All right, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in and for making it all the way to the end. I'll catch you back here next week. Bye. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. I would so appreciate that. And if you love what I share here, then you're going to love and want to join my free private Facebook community that's also called Marriage and Motherhood. I hope to see and connect with you in there. Otherwise, I'll catch you back here for the next episode. Bye.